spoilers? Oh, lots and lots of spoilers.
Hello, our name's Max Mike Movies, and we're gonna sing you a little number from our album Semi-Real People. This here's one that Muddy Mississippi Mike over yonder came up with when he was wallering in the creek with the crawdads while his daddy was working the coal farms of South Cotton, Beaufort, Tennessee. Back in the...
Max,
what?
None of that is correct.
Look, I just wanted to pretend I was a big rockabilly country star. You know, like the fellow this movie's about, Johnny Cash, okay? Why must you poop all over my dreams?
Because that's my job!
Behold my dreams, see how pooped upon they are.
I'm the great pooper.
For real. This week's biopic is Walk the Line, the story of Johnny Cash and how he met the love of his life, June Carter, played lots of music, did fistfuls of country fried drugs, appeared on episodes of Columbo and Quincy, and achieved the greatest honor any musician can, singing a duet with Miss Piggy on The Muppet Show. He truly lived the dream. Oh, yeah, and his album Folsom Prison Blues kind of outsold the Beatles at the time, too. So he had that going for him.
Sure.
I'm your host, Max Jerry Lee Levine, and over there is Mike Lemon Lyman Loose.
Could have been worse. I could have been blind Lemon Lyman Loose.
Yes, and welcome. First off, I would like to bring up our last week's poll question.
Ooh.
Yes, where we asked people, was there a movie that the first time you saw it, you didn't like it, but it grew on you over time? We did get a couple of results. What were those results there, Mike?
Me? You have them. I don't have them.
That's true. I got them here.
Whew,
one of them
don't
was
do
from
that.
I just like seeing that vein in your temple stick out.
It's the only one I have. So what were our answers, Max?
Well, our answers, one was from, of course, one of our loyal listeners, Val.
Ooh.
And she pointed out that a movie she wasn't crazy about when she started with it, was Robin Hood Men in Tights. But it grew on her.
I understand the first part of her feelings. I don't understand the second, but...
Well, she said she was like home... being both having the stomach flu and being pregnant, which I thought was the same thing, but I don't really understand where babies come from. And
oh boy.
She really liked it. We also had a response from our buddy Vince.
Our international listener,
Vince, who pointed out that the movie that fell into that category for him was Apocalypse Now. Yeah, he just couldn't relate to it at all until... And this is the part that gets me. A person he knew convinced him on a bet to watch it after he got him to watch Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast. And the person who got him to watch Apocalypse Now again was David Mamet, the Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright.
Well,
and I guess if he tells you to watch a movie, you watch the damn movie.
Maybe at the time he was David Mamet Burger Flipper. Who knows? Probably
I don't think so.
Probably not. Well, that's a cool story.
Yeah. So for next week, our poll question
Well, wait, before we go to the next one, how about you, Max? Has there been a movie that you have watched first and said, I don't like ye, no, me like ye, no, 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 and then later it's like, me like ye?
None that I felt that my opinion really changed that strongly. There is some like Emma, the Gwyneth Paltrow one, which the first time I saw it, it was one of those movies I kind of wanted to hit in the face with a shovel. It was just so darn precious.
You're so violent.
But I have to say, I watched it a couple other times because it would show up on cable all the time. And I got to like it. I mean, there are some nice performances. Even Miss Goop herself does a nice job.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. What about you?
There's two that leap to mind, one of which it might be a surprise for anybody who knows me at all. The Fifth Element. And I think what happened was people were building it up to be this thing. And I went and saw it, and of course I don't like Bruce Willis in general either, which didn't help, and he does happen to star in that film. And I just saw it and was like, I guess, okay, whatever. And then, like your experience, it showed up over and over again, and the more I liked it, the more I loved it. I really liked Fifth Element. It's a hell of a fun movie. I don't know what my problem was the first time. Maybe, again, just it was reaction to people going, "It's so great! You have to see it! Love it! You love it!" But people don't usually do that.
A lot of people were doing that, were they?
Lots. I can't even count them. The other one, though, was Moana. When I first saw Moana, I was like, Disney, the storytelling, it's okay. Why are we going down to this crab? Does not fit in the rest of the movie. It still doesn't really fit for the rest of the movie at all, although the song is a lot of fun. And then later, I just really liked the fact that Disney dove into this culture and just like, we're just doing this. And I liked a lot of the songs, and so I was like, I got over it after the fifth or sixth time. So now we have things to ask people next week, don't we?
Yes. It's a pretty straightforward one. Is there any film of the recent past or the distant past that you would really like to see remade?
Ooh, remade.
Remade.
So because either they got it wrong the first time, or you just would like to see an updated version, or
yeah, either way, not a sequel, but a full-on remake.
Like State Fair. They've only done that 4 times. Or A Star is Born. What's that, 5?
At least. And, of course, really, you can never get past that great remake of Casablanca, Barbed Wire.
Or how about that shot-for-shot remake of Psycho? Because that was necessary.
Oh, God. Yeah, that one with of course... Because when you think, I need someone creepy and subtle like Tony Perkins, let's get Vince Vaughn.
It could have been Tom Hanks, right? Because he's super creepy. No.
No, he's not, actually. But no, Tom Hanks would be the problem. Is like, what a lovable psychopath.
So next week, during this coming week, by all means, respond. We'll tell you how to do that later on. About is there a movie you would like to see remade, and if possible, why would you like to see it remade? But we watched something else for this week, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Walk the Line.
Ooh.
And now, trivia about it.
The show.
So, the budget for this movie was $28 million.
Oh.
Worldwide gross, $186 million.
Oh, that's sad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why we've seen Walk the Line 2, Walk the Line 3.
Yeah.
You know they tried. This also, it was a big hit with critics. It was Reese Witherspoon won Best Actress for this, the Oscar, in 2006. There were 4 other nominations for the film. Best Actor for Joaquin Phoenix, Best Editing, Best Costume Design, and Best Sound Mixing.
Best Costume Design?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
And they like June's dresses. Normally I shy away from these sort of, this guy did this and the same thing and was going to be this, because I find those irritating. But this I thought was kind of an interesting, if rather poignant part. In 2005, Joaquin Phoenix was up against Heath Ledger for Best Actor for Brokeback Mountain. Neither of them won that year. Both of those actors went on to play the Joker. Both of those actors won Oscars for playing that same character. Sort of the same character.
Yeah. We won't talk about the Joker movie.
Oh, no, we've done that before. It took 4 years for the producers to secure the rights to the story from James Keach, who was a friend of Johnny Cash and the family. Even after Keach agreed, it took another 4 years to get the film made.
Wow.
Keach, by the way, is in the movie. He plays the warden of Folsom Prison.
Ah.
Yes. Johnny Cash himself approved Joaquin Phoenix to play him in the film because he liked his performance in Gladiator. Apparently, Johnny Cash likes movies about gladiators.
Has he ever been to a Turkish prison?
June Carter Cash also approved Reese Witherspoon.
Weird.
Joaquin Phoenix.
What year was this movie? Do you know?
2005.
Oh, okay.
And Cash died in
2003. Yeah.
Yeah. Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon performed all of the songs themselves without any dubbing. They also learned to play their instruments, the guitar and the auto harp, from scratch. They did not know how to play those when they started this movie.
I mean, admittedly, the auto harp is probably the easier of the two to learn to play.
I have no idea.
Well, you push a button, it makes the chord. That's the point. That's the auto part.
The two of them also were so nervous about having to sing that it caused real tension in their relationship off screen. They both admitted in interviews they didn't get along and were constantly arguing during the 6 months of singing lessons prior to filming. It wasn't until filming started that they connected, and they really became close. According to the co-writer and director James Mangold, the two of them developed an almost codependent relationship during the film. According to him, after the filming wrapped, Phoenix admitted to him that he and Witherspoon had relied on each other so much that they had made a secret pact that if one of them dropped out of the movie, the other one would leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's, there's life for you, right? Because that's
Yep.
not entirely unlike the plot.
This film, by the way, was screened for the inmates of Folsom Prison 38 years after Cash's landmark performance.
Huh.
The scene where Johnny Cash rips a sink off the wall was not scripted. Joaquin Phoenix literally ripped a sink off the wall. It's kind of a problem as they had to shut down the rest of the scene.
Huh.
So that was a real sink.
At least he didn't throw it at anybody.
June Carter Cash died before the production even began. Johnny Cash died just as it had begun. Reese Witherspoon's research included going through Carter's closet for inspiration.
That's not creepy.
Now, when we talk about how accurate or inaccurate this movie is, the people who knew him, especially Cash's children, had some pretty disparate feelings about the movie. Kathy Cash, Johnny's second oldest daughter with his first wife Vivian, walked out of a family screening of the film 5 times. They kept pulling her back in. She felt Phoenix and Witherspoon's performances were Oscar-worthy, but her mother, Vivian, who's played by Jennifer Godwin. I'm sorry, Ms. Godwin is a terrific actor, but every time I see her, I think of the rabbit. She felt that Vivian was cast in an unfair light. Also, she didn't think there was enough scenes of Johnny interacting with his children, which he did quite a lot. He was with them a lot.
I was going to say, or any.
And the film portrayed her father too harshly. When her half-brother, John Carter Cash, who was an executive producer of the film, was asked about her reaction, he responded that the movie was intended to tell a love story between his mother and father. That's why it sort of skimped on the other stuff. His daughter, Roseanne Cash, described the movie as having a root canal without anesthetic. Despite what they show in the movie, sort of implying that Johnny Cash had a drug problem for a while and then stopped, he had a drug problem through his entire adult life. There would be a few years here and there in between when he would be clean, but he always relapsed. It was pretty sad. For the Folsom Prison sequence, Joaquin Phoenix, and this you begin to see why people don't like working with him, insisted that the crew members playing the wardens and the prisoners, playing the wardens wouldn't let the extras playing the inmates eat, drink, or use the toilet. This helped create a rather tense atmosphere on set.
Huh?
Yeah. He said he didn't want, like real prisoners. Now, this film, by the way, it owes its genesis to a true media pioneer, a 1993 episode of Dr. Quinn Medicine Week. Yep.
And how is that?
Johnny Cash was guest starring on the show, as he did on many, many, many TV shows. And he became friends with Jane Seymour, who was the star, and her husband, the director, James Keach.
Oh.
And Cash suggested to Keach he should try a film of the singer's life, and Keach liked the idea. So both Keach and Jane Seymour started compiling interviews with Cash in preparation for the script. By 1997, Gil Dennis had enough material to put a screenplay together, but the project stalled. That's when Keach reached out to James Mangold, knowing the director wanted to make the movie too. As we see in the movie, Johnny Cash likes to wear black a lot.
Yes.
He's in fact called the Man in Black. He has a song called The Man in Black where he sings about why it's very dramatic. They used to call him the Undertaker.
Oh.
And he said, honestly, he wore the black clothes because they were easier to keep looking clean on long tours. That was it. There's plenty more stuff, but I think that's good for now.
Well, perhaps, now that we're done with trivia, you might regale us with a wonderful spinning your own yarn version of the plot.
From his days as a sharecropper's son in Depression-era Kingsland, Arkansas, to his becoming one of the most successful music icons of his era, Walk the Line follows the story of the rise and fall and rise and fall and rise of Johnny Cash. We see the tragic loss of his older brother Jack, skim over his time in the Air Force, and watch his rise to stardom touring with the likes of Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, Roy Orbison, and the king himself, Elvis Presley. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Flawless impression.
That was the word I was going to use.
Most importantly, we see him touring with June Carter, the woman who would become the love of his life, who stayed with him through the very highs, literally, and the very lows. This is a story about the Man in Black.
The lowdown. Yeah. Well, so we'll start off with the usual question. Had you seen this before? I'm betting you had.
No, I never did.
Really? It was an Oscar contender. You usually go for all of those.
I know. I did. Whatever it was in 2006, I just missed it.
Huh. So this is your first viewing as well. Same with me.
Yep.
Are you much of a Cash fan?
I was. I still am to a degree. My father really liked Johnny Cash, and he used to play me a bunch of his music. And I liked just... What always struck me was the wide range of his music. I mean, he did everything. He did country, western, rockabilly, rock and roll, folk, everything. And he has, in addition to his very moving and touching songs, he has some really funny ones. I always liked A Boy Named Sue. And this song, I Built It One Piece at a Time, about a guy who is building a car out of the pieces he steals one at a time from the auto plant he works at.
See, they didn't even mention auto plants in the movie.
No.
Yeah, you mentioned in your recap that they gloss over some things. They gloss over a lot.
Yeah, we jump. It's a little unnerving because at one point he's like, I don't know, 8 years old. Then he's 12 years old. Then he's in the Air Force. Then he's married.
And that's the thing is, like, there's literally this is one scene. Where he's lying in bed having just dealt with the death of his brother Jack, which is one of the most telegraphed scenes I've ever been a witness to. But
I have that in my notes, like, that thing with the table saw is not going to end well. And it doesn't.
No. And it's like, y'all go ahead. I'll just be here with the radial cut your arm off saw. I actually thought it was just going to be an arm. I didn't think it was going to kick back and basically send a 2x4 through him, which is apparently more or less what it did. But like he lays down in bed and he's crying and he rolls over and he's Joaquin Phoenix. It's like, wow. And there's no guessing how old he is. And that's one of the issues I have with the film is he does not age. In fact, nobody ages in this film. He looks like Joaquin Phoenix playing Johnny Cash at the beginning of the film, and he looks exactly the same at the end of the film, and it's supposedly 1968, which is 30 years later?
Yeah, at that point, I mean, he was born in, I think,
Well, I know that, he goes into the Air Force in, I think, 44?
Yeah.
So this would be 24 years later, and he looks exactly the same.
No, it must have been later than 44.
No, that's right. It must have been 50 because it was Korea.
Yeah. Okay. I think it was 50. I think it was 54. He went in.
Regardless, nobody ages. None of the band members age. No, June Carter doesn't age. Nobody ages.
That didn't bother me. Sometimes they do that in movies. They just go, never mind. We're not going to mess with the makeup. And boy, Dad is a real peach, isn't he? Ray Carter. Ray Cash.
I do want to call that out because Robert Patrick has gotten kind of a short shrift. Like, he showed up in T2, and we all thought he was wonderfully menacing, and, that steely gaze. See what I did there? Steely gaze in T2. And then he doesn't really get a lot. And in this, I think he was in one other film, and he was not particularly good, and I wish I could remember what it was. But in this film, I thought he actually showed some real depth. There was a lot of restraint in his performance, and you could just see the disappointment he has for his son. And the sad thing is, it's not based on anything. It's just that he liked Jack better. Jack was the older son, and he decided...
He was the favorite.
And he just decided there was only enough love in his heart for one son, and that was it from the beginning. And we see this continues on. It's like, you're a disappointment, you're a disappointment, you're a disappointment. And that's
clearly a big part of what... We've mentioned this about some of the previous biopics. We get a little bit more about what makes up Johnny Cash in this. We see that a lot of it is survivor's guilt and the loss of his brother and how he still... I think on some level he agreed with his father. He said he thought it should have been him, instead of Jack, and that's just tragic to watch.
I was glad. So during the film, when the accident happens and young Johnny is walking home with his fishing pole, and a truck is coming towards him, and it has his dad with his brother's bloody clothes in it, and he's like, "Where were you?" And he grabs his son, and they go off to the hospital just in time to see Jack die. And I'm glad that at some point, at least in the film, Johnny has the guts to say, "Well, where were you?" implying that he was probably drunk in the field, which is what he did.
Yeah.
Sadly, though, all he can come back with is, "I gave up drinking a long time ago." It's like, oh, I see, and this excuses what you've done his entire life. But again, I thought Robert Patrick, it's a small part, but I thought he was actually pretty good in this. And I, thought, I don't know if it led to a lot more, probably not, but I wish it had. Do we want to talk about the other performances while we're here? Since there are some.
there are quite a few.
I'm going to start off actually with Reese, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
She's fun. She is so perky. She talks about how she's like, well, I'm not as good a singer, so I'm just going to do comedy. I love the part that early on where she got caught in Cash's guitar strap, and she's calling from off stage. They're like, "Hey, June, where are you?" And she's like, "Don't worry about it. I can make this funny for 2 minutes." And she does.
Yep.
And I know
she improvs a whole bit off it about being stuck on his guitar strap.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a strapping young man, and he's got a strapping guitar strap, too.
And we're just like, can she say that in the 50s? I don't know if she can. But she's funny, and she's obviously very capable, although she doesn't think she's as capable as she is. I could tell right away that it was definitely her singing, and because she's sung in other things before. She does great. I bought it.
I think she's terrific. She's this combination of strong and brittle, and a woman who clearly doesn't value herself enough.
Yeah, that's until the end. When she keeps telling him no. I thought she was terrific. What did you think of Joaquin?
All right, look, Joaquin Phoenix is a really good actor. I have a great deal of respect for him. I just had a little trouble. Was Johnny Cash supposed to be that scary? Because Joaquin Phoenix always has this air of barely restrained insanity about him.
Yeah.
Like he's about to go off. And I don't know if that's him or if that's just how he interprets every part he ever plays.
Well, wasn't he the one who decided that for, a year or two he was going to pretend to be homeless or something?
And homeless and crazy and grew a ridiculous ZZ Top beard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is either really likes playing with people or his elevator skipping a few floors on the way to the penthouse.
And it's funny because there's some scenes where, especially early on, I don't really feel like he's quite in the character. To me, it's the scene in the diner. They've gone on tour, and he's now actually working with his literally his childhood idol, which was June Carter. He used to listen to her on the radio as part of the Carter family.
Yeah. So she started singing when she was 10 years old.
Yeah, and he used to listen to her, and he's like, "I know who she is. That's her. I know her." And he loved her singing, and he finally gets to meet her. And there's a scene when they're on tour together, and he approaches her in the diner, and it's actually him being really awkward and like, do I talk to her? How do I talk to her? And that felt very real. But you're right. There are scenes even up into Folsom, and he plays his guitar so strangely. He plays it like almost under his chin, which, to be fair, I think is how Johnny played.
He did play it like that. He did all sorts of strange things with it. He was very physical with his guitar, the way Jimi Hendrix was.
But his eyes are bugging out, and it's like you said, it's like, is Johnny going to grab a gun and start shooting people?
There is that sequence where he's playing. It's the song Stripes, and they're on stage together, and he just starts staring at her.
Yeah.
And by the way, they didn't tell Reese Witherspoon that's what he was going to do. That really uncomfortable reaction she gets, that's real.
Yeah, okay.
She didn't know what was going on.
My note on him was Joaquin seems uncomfortable in his own skin. Like he's just never settled in the part. Now, the singing I got to give him credit for. I think he did a great job on the singing. I mean, nobody is Johnny Cash.
No.
But he hits all the notes, and there is a Cashness about his performance. And hell, if he's playing the guitar too, kudos for that. What did you think?
I thought he does a nice job singing. I don't think he sounded like Johnny Cash very much. I guess that was obviously a choice, and honestly, I think that's a good choice because it's really hard if you try to sound just like the person, it's really easy to slip into parody.
You mean like the guy playing Elvis Presley?
Yeah, even he wasn't too bad. Or the guy playing Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh,
that was
boy.
That was kind of fun. Like there's Roy Orbison and there's Jerry Lee Lewis and there's Carl Perkins.
And they're all on tour together. Could you imagine seeing that tour?
Oh my God! And a lot of these people are in there going, "Oh, I wonder who these idiots are."
Oh my God! They don't even talk about Roy Orbison. Like he's barely there, which is
he's
too bad.
in one shot. Yeah, he's in one shot and he's doing one of Cash's songs. But the reaction of the crowds, you watch all the girls screaming, and just losing their minds. Well, yeah, this was an unbelievable lineup, and this was all before they really hit their strides, any of them.
Yeah, Carl Perkins, I think, is probably the most forgotten member of that group, which is a shame because he was one of the biggest. Yep. Presley, everybody knows who Elvis is. And the funny thing is, I think what I like about it is because it's so earlier in the career, they're all just guys. Yeah. There's none of that. Well, I'm Elvis. They're just like they're drinking beers and smoking cigarettes.
Hey there, you want some chili fries?
Which,
I love that.
That was the parody part that I was like, this is okay. I mean, at least it's not a peanut butter and banana sandwich, but it's it's
that didn't come till later. Yeah.
The guy playing Jerry Lewis is funny. Although this is one section, I'm like. He's sitting there going, "We're all going to hell. We're all going to hell." And I'm like, wait, this from the guy who marries his 13-year-old cousin?
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, he was the son of a preacher. He grew up with all that Baptist fire and brimstone stuff.
Yeah, apparently didn't hold very well.
Not too well, but yeah.
13-year-old cousin.
Jerry Lee Lewis was perhaps not the king of Sanity Fair, shall we say.
I guess not. But, the only... we're missing... Obviously, there was a lot of black performers who were equally as good, if not better, at the same time that we're not seeing because that's what happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, we don't see any. We don't see Little Richard. We don't see Etta James. We don't see Sister Ruth.
We don't see any of the blues performers. B.B. King is still around. Around
because they didn't tour with the White Boys.
No, which is a shame. And there's a story I'm going to bring up a little bit later, but that tour alone, it's like, well, we're going to go to a show tonight. There's some band called the Rolling Stones, and there's some band called the Beatles, but I guess somebody called the Who is opening. I don't know. It's probably going to be boring, but it's like it's one of those moments where it's like you just don't know what you're getting. And they show them, and they're not playing like a stadium. They're playing like school gyms and stuff, which was still money, but it was like, oh my God, the talent you're seeing, literally the beginning of rock and roll. And it's like, oh, yeah, this happened. And I didn't know Johnny Cash had anything to do with that. Mm-hmm. But he did. That's a real tour.
That's where he started out. He started out more in rock. Well, he started out trying to do spirituals, but as the, what was his name? The fellow who signed him to the label?
Sam Phillips.
Sam Phillips says, I can't sell that kind of spiritual. People want something different. What they wanted was rock and roll. And that was when, Cash and his band of two guys who, as his wife points out, can barely play their instruments.
Yeah.
And that's when he says, well, I got a couple of songs I wrote, and he plays him Folsom Prison Blues.
Right.
And the guy, you can see the look in his eyes like, this I can sell.
Well, and I loved what he said, too. He's like, I don't care about what you're singing. He's like, do you believe it? Because I don't believe you're right. You're saying I don't believe in God. It's like, no, I don't believe that you believe the song you're singing.
Yeah.
And that was right. There was like no
conviction.
Yeah, no cash in it. And even when he starts playing Folsom Prison Blues, he's hesitant. But when he gets into it, it's like, okay, now I'm seeing something.
Yeah.
And Sam Phillips, so here's a guy that we gloss over, which is a dang shame, although this movie isn't about him. But he has a huge influence on what would be rock and roll. He's kind of the guy. Without him, there kind of wouldn't be any, because he started the careers of all of those people, plus Howlin' Wolf. He also, B.B. King recorded at Sun Records. Mm-hmm. All of these people would record at Sun Records, and Sun would actually sell to bigger distributors. But he owned 3 radio stations. So he would get this stuff played. It was not only just, hey, I'm going to get other people to play it. I'm going to play it on my radio stations. But things that they had to gloss over, but it's too bad. And I want to bring them in just because I think they're interesting. There's a story about his fabled $1 Million Quartet. This is according to Wikipedia. Phillips' pivotal role in the early days of rock and roll is exemplified by a celebrated jam session on December 4th, 1956, with what became known as the $1 Million Quartet. Jerry Lee Lewis was playing piano for Carl Perkins' recording session at Phillips' studio when Elvis Presley walked in unexpectedly. Johnny Cash was called into the studio by Phillips, leading to an impromptu session featuring the four musicians, which I don't think it was recorded, which is a damn shame.
Oh, God.
But Phillips challenged the four to achieve gold record status, offering a free Cadillac to the first. Do you know who won?
I'm going to go with Perkins.
You are correct. It was Carl Perkins. And this was commemorated by a song called Drive-By Truckers, or a song by a band called Drive-By Truckers. But Phillips was actually an advocate for black rights, and he was the first person to open an all-woman radio station, WHER, in 1955.
Whoa.
He also passed away a month before Johnny Cash did, so they were kind of connected. Interestingly, he sold his stake in Elvis Presley for, at the time, a very large sum of cash, which he then turned into an investment in Holiday Inn, a new and upcoming thing. Made way more money than he would have off Presley and did just fine.
Wow.
But it's we gloss through time, but we also gloss through, understandably in some cases, some really interesting parts. Like, we never see that kind of thing in this film, which is kind of too bad. But it's, like you said, it's supposed to be about Cash and Carter.
But it is fun to see who else sort of shows up peripherally. We don't see him, but Bob Dylan is involved in this. It really threw me. I never thought I'd see... I didn't know they did this, we have Johnny and June Carter singing "It Ain't Me You're Looking For, It Ain't Me, Babe." The Dylan song that allegedly Dylan wrote for Cash on the back of a barf bag on a plane. Yeah. That was the only paper he had.
I had no thought of a connection between Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan either.
Me neither.
Like, I always keep Johnny Cash in country, strictly in country, which isn't fair because, as this film points out, no, he was right there in the beginning of rock and roll. Yeah, his is a more country version of it, but
he did all of it. He did country, he did rockabilly, he did rock and roll, he did folk. He was very hard to pin down.
Wait, I'm sorry. "It Ain't Me, Babe," that was a song written by Bob Dylan for...
Yes, it was.
Because the only version I know of that song that I've ever heard was by Sebastian Cabot.
Leave at your own chosen speed.
Oh, no, it ain't me, babe. Oh, no, it ain't me. Another one of those. It's, yeah. Go ahead and look it up, folks. Sebastian Cabot sings Bob Dylan because, yeah, he has a whole album. It's. And if you don't know who Sebastian Cabot is, well, just consider yourself lucky.
Hey, he was good at what he did. He was great as Big Ear of the Panther. Anyway.
Mr. French.
And even there's just a little throwaway at one point where after... Johnny's thrown out of his house or leaves his house because his wife, Vivian, his first wife, has quite understandably had kind of enough.
Yeah.
Where is he? He's crashing in this apartment with Waylon Jennings.
I love how he just says Waylon, and it's like, is that Waylon Jennings? Like, you automatically know who it is. But
yeah, and you know who that was playing him? That was Waylon Jennings' son, Shooter Jennings.
Shooter Jennings,
yeah, thanks, Dad.
Okay.
Nice name.
Are you kidding? He probably loved it. I mean,
did.
That's a name you want as a kid anyway. But
sure.
It's funny that they said that they didn't like the way their mother was portrayed because I thought her a totally sympathetic character. I was like, she did everything she was supposed to do. She was in love with him. And when she said what she wanted is like, I don't want the house. I don't want all the trappings. I want you.
I want my husband. I want you to be around. I want you to help me with normal things. But she clearly also just didn't get him. She didn't get what he was, and she didn't get what he could do.
Well, my feeling was, and this is the way the film's portraying it, is that once he actually meets June Carter, he doesn't even try. Like, it's sort of like, yeah, I'm married, but that's what I want. And his affection isn't really aimed at her or the kids at all. Now, it's nice to hear that he actually spent time with his kids, because he certainly doesn't in the film.
Yeah.
I couldn't even name any of them. Samantha, Susan, Becky, I don't know.
One was Roseanne.
Oh, that's right. He does mention the name Roseanne.
Yep.
Yeah, because there's one point where he's talking to her over the phone. But yeah, there's that's kind of too bad that they said that there was lots of him with the kids, but we don't see it in the film. But that happens a lot.
And the drug problems, those were real. He was seriously addicted to both amphetamines and barbiturates, which is very common with touring musicians or touring actors because, sometimes you're too exhausted to perform. You take the amphetamines to get up, then you can't sleep or you can't relax, so you take the barbiturates to calm down.
Yeah. Is it the literal uppers and downers? Is that what that is?
Pretty much. I mean, I'm not sure what he was taking a lot of the time. There's one shot on the desk where we see these pills that I am pretty sure were Black Beauties, which are amphetamines.
Okay. I love it how he blames it on Elvis Presley. Well, Elvis takes them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is a great role model.
Yeah, well, he would die in the toilet. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Johnny's career, or at least the career that we see in the film. How good a feel do you get of Johnny's career?
Not terribly. We assume he's successful because he keeps buying bigger houses.
Right.
But we don't know if he stayed with we don't see if he stayed with the same label. We don't see really, most of the venues we see him playing are pretty much the same size. He's not doing stadium shows.
Well, until he gets to Vegas, I think that's supposed to be the Johnny Cash show, I think.
Yeah,
because there's sort of a shot of Vegas and then there's a stage, and I think it's Vegas. It doesn't actually have the big Vegas sign, but of course, it's the 50s or early 60s. Vegas wasn't really Vegas yet, not like it is today.
But except for his song, what is it, Cry, 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 we never hear how his albums are selling.
No. Or
how successful he is on the radio. We get an idea just because we see those sacks of fan mail. I think we get some idea. It was a little unclear, but honestly, I don't think that's what the emphasis is. The story isn't so much about the rise of Johnny Cash. I think it is about his relationship with June Carter. And that I think they handle really well. I mean, it's in some ways it's such a destructive thing, and you can see he does. That part of me is watching this going, June, run.
Especially if he's like Joaquin Phoenix, because the axe is coming out at some point. That's just how it feels. Or the machine gun or the million bubble machine, whatever he chooses to use for his reign of terror.
I honestly don't know if that's what Cash was like, but Joaquin Phoenix always has, at least he plays him in this, a little like the Emperor Commodus in Gladiator, with this barely restrained. There's something really bad waiting to get out of him. And we don't really see much of it. Most of it's turned inward. It's mostly destructive to him.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes hard to empathize with him because it's hard to empathize with someone you're scared of.
And that's the thing, is I can understand being hard to empathize with him because it's like, dude, your drug problem's ridiculous, and wow, you're a womanizer, and oh, you're sleeping with fans too while you're on the road. Before you even get to June Carter, you're going off with Bobby Soxers and stuff. And that's fine, because I don't mind them not glossing over those parts of the person. But yeah, the scary part, I don't know if... I mean, if I was going down a dark alley and at the end of it there was Johnny Cash in silhouette, the real Johnny Cash, I'm sure I'd be afraid, because he's the man in black, he's tall and he's gaunt, and that's one thing, but I never actually, all the performances I saw Johnny Cash in, I never thought he was going to pull out a gun or an axe or a wiffle bat or something.
Or beat me to death with his guitar.
Yeah. And there is, and also, there's that phrase, the camera loves so-and-so. Mm. In this case, it's the director, because I don't think the camera really loves Joaquin so much, but it pulls in real close a lot. Like, we're counting beard hairs. And it's like you could maybe help his performance out if you weren't quite so close. It was an odd thing. And I'm not saying that he's a handsome or an ugly guy or anything, but like the expressions you're talking about, where it's like that often we're real close to Johnny. So.
Yeah, it really does emphasize the intensity. And again, for some parts, I think that works. Maybe it worked here. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I just always found, whenever I saw Johnny Cash interviewed or I would see him on a show, he came across as a lot more likable.
Yeah.
And a lot less scary, a lot less intimidating. Although I do like the fact that he quotes Foghorn Leghorn in the movie. Fortunately, I keep my feathers numbered for just such an occurrence.
We're getting dangerously close anyway. Why don't we look at our little questions, if you don't mind? So what do we know, or what do we think we know about Johnny and June from this movie?
I think we learn quite a lot. I think we get a real idea of their relationship, and we can see. I can understand the appeal for both of them. I really can. Obviously, she sees him as wounded and wants to help, and she's adorable. And
she is.
Why wouldn't he be in love with her? Why isn't everyone in love with her? And I'm sorry. There's this one shot I love when he's getting clean. And June is staying with him, and her whole family is there, and his drug dealer shows up, and Ma and Pa Carter run out with shotguns and chase the guy away. Yeah. And the guy is rightly terrified, and I am just like, I want to know more about Ma and Pa Carter. I like these people.
The thing that kills me is that the guy shows up, and it's like, it's almost a duffel bag of drugs.
Yes.
It's not like a small box. It's not like, a tasteful cigarette package size thing. It is literally this big plastic bag tied up with a little twist tie full. And we see this because he gets one shipment earlier in the film, and he's like, he dumps it on the table, and it's just like, it's like that Patton Oswalt book. Yeah, just back the pickup truck and we'll give old people however drugs they want. Beep, beep, beep.
I do like that they don't gloss over that either. They don't shy away from how terrible the drug use was and what he would do to get them and what he was like when he couldn't have them.
Yeah. I agree. I think we learn about the personalities.
Yeah.
But very much like some of the films we talked about, we don't learn a lot of facts. Like, the time in this film, it's like, there are points where I'm like, when are we? There's actually one point where they said, and 1 year later. 1 year later than what? We don't even.
Sometimes we get a year, but
yeah, but then they just
random.
Give up. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is a little off-putting. It's hard to tell the chronology. I do like. Oh, by the way, when he proposes to her on stage,
okay,
that's exactly what happened.
Well, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, 1968. He proposed to her on stage while they're trying to sing Jackson, and he wouldn't let her off until she agreed to marry him. Which I have to admit, I'm a little uncomfortable with that sequence,
especially because he's like, "Yeah, you want to marry me?" Oh. It's like, that's where Nicolas Cage could have taken over.
The only part of is she is so clearly not intimidated by him, and which is amusing because Reese Witherspoon is, shall we say, not a large woman. She's a tiny, delicate-looking creature, but she is tough as nails. You can tell, and she is not afraid of him. She is not intimidated by him. I really like that. That was the only thing that keeps that whole sequence from being really awful, is that you get the feeling she is not being bullied at all. She isn't overwhelmed.
I didn't think she was feeling the pressure from him because she showed she could handle it, but I felt she was being pressured by the crowd.
It's the same sort of thing when you have people who like propose on the Jumbotron or have skywriting. I think unless you know they're going to say yes, unless you've discussed it, that's an awful thing to do to someone.
And that's why I don't like it, because it felt to me like he was using the audience on purpose. Like, I think
the idea he was trying to convey was that it was only the two of them up there. That's why he was so close to her. That's why he's putting his face down near hers. He doesn't want her to think about the crowd. But they're there. There's no way that they can't be there. They know that they must feel the presence. That's a bit much. I had an experience. I was actually part of something like that once, and it was agonizing.
Ah.
Yeah.
Did she say yes?
No.
Oh.
Yeah. Basically, the short version is I was in Harvard Square. This guy came by and asked all of the people in Holyoke Center. He handed out lyric sheets for Build Me Up Buttercup. And he was going to ask his girlfriend to marry him, and he got us all to sing. It was sort of an early flash mob. And I don't know exactly what she said, but she turned around and ran away.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, hey, male listeners, single male listeners, here's a hint.
Yeah, if you're going to do one of those big public proposals, make sure you've talked about it before. Make sure you know you're on the same page. Don't think that this will change her mind.
I'd say just don't do it.
Yeah.
Or girls, if you're thinking of asking a guy, just why make the public part of that? It's like, it's nice that you want to express your love and stuff, but just take a word from Johnny Cash. Don't.
The only version I did like of that was a couple of friends of mine. They had already talked about getting married, and they were on the same page, and they were flying home on a plane, and the guy got a note to the pilot, and the pilot came on the intercom saying, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I've been asked to check if the passenger in seat 41A will marry the passenger in seat 41B.
That's so romantic.
I thought that was cute. And fortunately, she liked it. So
now, the only reason I could see to do it is like Max just said, if you're all both on the same page, and you're like, well, let's see if we can get some freebies out of it, and like just do a few of them, right?
Yeah.
Like let's go viral. We'll do something for Instagram, and then let's go do this restaurant. Maybe we can get some free desserts.
I'm sure people are already doing this. I'm sure people do stunt proposals that they've already scripted and choreographed.
But it was our idea
on both sides. Yep. So we should get some of that Instagram money.
Yeah, that sweet Instagram cash.
Yeah, but we are getting a bit far afield.
In your
what are the other? Yep.
Yeah, the other questions. In your research, how accurate do you think the depiction was?
That's really tricky because so much of this, as you say, it's not about the facts in the movie, it's about the behaviors and the feelings.
Yeah.
And according to a lot of the kids, they got a bunch of stuff wrong. According to a lot of other people, including Cash, who read the screenplay, and June Carter Cash, they were pretty on target on a lot of this stuff.
And that's the thing is, like, whenever you talk to family is always protective, unless they hated the person, but they're usually very protective, and they're like, I don't want to, like, I think there probably is some historical glossing over of what actually happened. I gotta say, if Cash and Carter were all like, yeah, we're fine with this, I'm gonna have to say it's probably fairly accurate, even if a few things were out of place, because that's always done.
And there is some question, like the whole of who wrote Ring of Fire. The implication is that that Carter Cash wrote it. There's some people who question that.
Now, see, I thought that was done as an ad for Preparation H. Are you telling me it's not true?
It is not true. And,
I sat down on a burning ring of fire.
My butt felt like a burning ring of fire. Yeah, I don't think so.
It's perfect.
Preparation H, you're missing out. I bet you could get the rights from the estate.
I'm sure they're ripe for the picking.
Oh, yeah.
Do we feel we get to know the subject, in this case, Carter? And I know it's Walk the Line. It's really about both of them.
Yeah, it is.
So do we get to know them better after having watched this?
I think so. I think this is one of the first of the biopics we've seen where we really do get to know them.
Yeah.
Where we get an idea, both the good and the bad. I mean, Carter's no angel. She went through, 2-3 husbands?
But I get the impression in that case it was more cases that she just wasn't willing to stand up for herself, and she may have chosen somebody because they loved her, and she had a problem with that because she always thought she wasn't good enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she seemed great. I don't know.
She seems like a really nice person. Yeah. And that's the other thing I saw that a lot of people do agree with the movie is that everybody loved her. Well, except for, the people who were upset at her ever getting divorced, because that's a sin.
Yeah, because I bet that lady never did anything.
Yeah.
That's our 3 questions. Any other notes you got before we get to the final wrap-up? I have no idea what that was.
I don't either. Where did that come from?
I don't know, but I might keep doing it. It's Elvis-ish.
I say. I do really like the Folsom prison sequence. I think that really... I have no idea what it was actually like, but that really... If you've ever listened to that album, and I have, it's amazing. And the crowd, oh my God, they love him. Well,
think about it. Like, how often does that happen? Like, do you think prisons get shows that come through?
They do. They get some. But they don't... I don't think they got a lot of people like Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
And just all those people, by the way, a lot of those letters were real letters from inmates writing to Johnny Cash saying, your music really touches me. It really makes me feel better because you're writing about, committing crimes and getting caught and going to jail, even though, as he said, he'd never done hard time.
No.
But he'd been in jail. At one time, he was arrested, and basically what he got was a stern talking to from the sheriff.
Was that the scene that we see in the movie?
No, that was yet another time he was arrested for possession. He got arrested a bunch of times.
I mean, I gotta say, so there's a scene where he goes down to Mexico to get his prescriptions filled.
Yeah.
And he comes back, and there's 3 marshals waiting for him. And I don't know about you, but the first thing I thought was, don't bother with the luggage, go right for the guitar. That's where it is. And sure. And the thing is, that, again, they pull out 3 gunny sacks of drugs. Oh, my God.
Well, I did like what they say. They say, you want to take the strings off, or are we going to have to break it?
Yeah. Because, come on, Johnny, think of something. I mean, hide them in your pocket, anything, but everyone knows they're on the guitar.
Like, you've got a huge musical instrument there. No, there couldn't be anything hidden in there.
Yeah.
He's like, why couldn't I have played the harmonica? Yeah. No, that's pretty much all I've got.
Yeah, so why don't we get to the roundup? The roundup. Well, here we are at the roundup. That was a big break. So, Max, we talked about the performances, which we generally liked, except for the scary serial killer aspect of Johnny Cash's nature we were not previously aware of.
Yeah.
And we talked about the general overall feeling of Johnny Cash and June Carter that we think we learn in this film, and them not shying away from the drugs or the drinking and the womanizing.
Yep.
What did you think of the film as a whole?
I like it. I think it's a little choppy. I do think the timeline is a little unsettling sometimes, the way we jump, and it's not consistent. But I liked it. I think it. It's 2 hours 16 minutes, and I think it doesn't feel like that. I think the pacing is really good. I love the music. I just love the music we get to hear in it. You know, if you don't like the early rock and roll, if you don't like early Johnny Cash, you're really not going to enjoy this. But if you don't like that music, what's wrong with you?
Now.
Sorry. I like it. I don't think it's fun, but it's not supposed to be fun.
It's a lot more fun than Benny and June last week. I mean, I'm sorry, Sid and Nancy.
Oh, yeah, same thing.
They're basically the same movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a lot less painful to watch. I like it. I think it's very good. I'm not surprised it did not win the Oscar. I don't think it was the film itself. I do think the performances were Oscar worthy. I think there's a lot of good stuff in this movie. What about you?
My first note is that it feels Hollywood right from the start, and I think it does. It just feels very Hollywood. The parts that I like are in general the performances. Joaquin, I'm back and forth on, because there's parts where I think he feels like Johnny Cash, but again, like you say, there's other times where he feels more like Anthony Perkins. And it is a weird, like you said, seeing him with Miss Piggy on the Muppet Show, seeing him on Columbo, he feels a lot more laid back and a lot less uptight. And I know he's acting, but let's face it, Johnny Cash was not an actor. I think in general, like he doesn't actually play Johnny Cash on Columbo, but he plays Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
It's not that character, but it really is. The time thing is just bizarre, because you really don't know when you are. And you're having to look at background stuff, and it's like, well, I think we're still in the 50s. Oh, no, it's 61. Okay. And it's almost like they're telling you it doesn't matter. And the problem with that is that we have absolutely no sense of his career at all, except the house. We look, he has a big house. And he has a $25,000 check. I guess he's doing well, right? But we don't... How many albums does he put out? Do we see, like, people enjoying his music? And that was the one thing that really surprised me. We learn a lot about how he feels about June Carter. We learn nothing about how much music plays a part in his life. In the earliest part of the film, we see him as a kid listening to the radio and being told to go to bed. Oh, I just love listening to that June Carter. Oh, and I learned music from the hymnal like my mom did. But we don't see, like, is music essential to Johnny Cash, or is it just something he does? And I don't think that that's true. I think that Johnny's connection to music was a lot stronger, but like we see him write one song, and even that feels a little Hollywood. So I think I found the movie a little bit more uneven than you did.
Okay.
Good performances. They didn't shy away from the drug use and the womanizing, which is, I think, good, because let's be honest, we wouldn't have believed it if he didn't.
Yeah.
But not overall very mixed. So.
Okay, that's fair.
So how about business? We have business, don't we?
We have business. As we said, our poll question is, what movie would you like to see remade? And you can answer this either by going to our website, maxmikemovies.com, where you can see all of our previous episodes and leave a comment with your answer, or you can email us at maxmikemovies.com. You can find us on the social mediatings on Facebook or Twitter under Max Mike Movies. You can find us on the podcast app of your choice. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us in your hearts. You can find us in that shadow right behind you.
Joaquin Phoenix!
Feeling our breath on the back of your neck. You will always find us, and we will always find you.
You have just made sure that no one will ever listen to our show again.
You mean they listen now?
Some people do. We got answers. So answer our poll question.
What? And speaking of answers, answer me this, Caped Crusader. What movie will we be enjoying next week?
I am the Lizard King.
Okay, so we're going to be watching Highlander. I mean, we already did the second one.
Yeah, that was my perfect and amazing impersonation of Jim Morrison. The lead singer of The Doors. We're going to be seeing The Doors, where I am the Lizard King, Cuckoo Kachoob. I might be mixing some metaphors in there.
I think you might, but
if you want to hear us mix metaphors.
Another movie about another musical icon of a very different kind.
Although I think there's drugs in it.
Oh, don't be silly. Jim Morrison taking drugs? What is wrong with you?
Does Jim Morrison take drugs? Tune in next week and find out.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.